Look, Derek, your coding methods are from 2010. We need architects who understand modern frameworks, not legacy systems, the 32-year-old CEO said while sliding my termination papers across his glass desk. We're building the future here, not maintaining the past. My name is Derek Harrison, 51 years old, and after 15 years of building TechFlow systems from the ground up, this Stanford MBA had just fired me for being outdated. I looked at Brandon Mitchell across his minimalist desk, all glass and chrome, designed to impress investors rather than facilitate actual work. Behind him, motivational posters about disruption and agile methodology, covered walls that used to display the architecture diagrams of systems I'd spent 15 years perfecting. Brandon, I said quietly, I built every line of code that runs this company, every database, every API, every security protocol. Exactly the problem, he replied, adjusting his designer glasses. Monolithic architecture, proprietary frameworks, over-engineered solution. Our new development team can rebuild everything in 6 months, using modern microservices and cloud-native technologies. I nodded once, already knowing what he didn't. When do you want me gone? Today, actually. Security will escort you out in 30 minutes. Your severance package is quite generous. 6 months' salary plus your accrued vacation time. What Brandon didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that every critical system I'd built over 15 years contained carefully embedded security measures that only I understood, not malicious backdoors or time bombs, but elegant architectural dependencies that required specific knowledge to maintain, knowledge that walked out the door with me. I founded TechFlow Systems' entire technical infrastructure back when Brandon was still in high school. Started as a junior developer when the company had 8 employees and 1 client, grew into senior software architect as we expanded to 2,000 employees, serving Fortune 500 companies across 12 industries. For 15 years, I'd been the steady hand building systems that never failed, never crashed, never lost data. While other companies chased the latest trends and rebuilt their platforms every 2 years, TechFlow's clients stayed loyal because our software worked reliably year after year. But 6 months ago, everything changed when TechFlow's original founder, Michael Torres, decided to retire and sell his majority stake to Apex Ventures, a Silicon Valley investment firm. Brandon Mitchell arrived as the new CEO, with an MBA from Stanford, 3 years at McKinsey, and a mandate to modernize operations for aggressive growth. The warning signs started immediately. Brandon hired a team of digital transformation consultants who spent 2 months analyzing our codebase and declaring it technically obsolete. He brought in young developers from hot startups, paying them 40% more than our existing team to inject fresh thinking into legacy processes. In monthly all-hands meetings, Brandon would talk about disrupting ourselves before our competitors disrupt us and embracing the startup mindset. He'd show charts comparing our slow development cycles to companies that pushed updates daily, conveniently ignoring that our clients valued stability over constant feature changes. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so I can keep sharing more captivating stories. Watch this video till the end, because this story is about to get incredibly interesting. The final straw came 2 weeks ago when Brandon announced TechFlow 2.0, a complete platform rebuild using modern cloud architecture and agile development principles. The project timeline, 6 months. The budget, $3 million. The architect, Kyle Stevens, a 28-year-old who'd worked at 3 different startups over the past 4 years. Derek will transition his institutional knowledge to Kyle over the next month, Brandon had announced, then focus on special projects while we modernize the platform. I knew what special projects meant in corporate speak. Brandon was planning to fire me once Kyle felt confident about understanding our systems. What Brandon didn't realize was that 15 years of institutional knowledge couldn't be transferred in a month, or even a year. I walked to my corner office, the space I'd occupied for 8 years, where I'd designed every major system upgrade, every security enhancement, every performance optimization that kept TechFlow running smoothly. My assistant, Carol, was waiting with a cardboard box and tears in her eyes. "This is wrong, Derek," she said quietly. "Everyone knows you built this place. Companies change, Carol. New leadership, new priorities. The development team is freaking out. Kyle's been asking questions about your code that nobody can answer." I smiled grimly. "They'll figure it out." As I packed my personal items, family photos, my original TechFlow coffee mug, the award for technical excellence I'd received 3 years running, I thought about the conversation I'd had with my wife Linda the night before. "Maybe this is a blessing," she'd said, as we sat on our back deck. "You've been talking about consulting independently for years. Now you'll have the freedom to choose your own projects." She was right, but not for the reasons she imagined. What Linda didn't know, what Brandon certainly didn't know, was that over the past 6 months, I'd been quietly preparing for this exact scenario, not because I'd predicted my termination, but because in the software world, you learn to build contingency plans for system failures, including human ones. Every critical system I'd designed contained what I called architectural dependencies, elegant code structures that required specific knowledge to modify or maintain, not backdoors or sabotage, but simply the natural result of 15 years of institutional knowledge embedded in complex software architecture. Our client authentication system used a custom encryption protocol I'd developed that was more secure than industry standards, but required understanding of the mathematical principles I'd implemented. Our database optimization algorithms incorporated techniques I'd learned from academic research that wasn't widely known in the industry. Our API integration layer used proprietary methods that maximized performance, but were documented only in my personal notes. Brandon thought he could replace 15 years of architectural expertise with 6 months of modern development. He was about to learn the difference between building new software and maintaining systems that actually mattered to paying customers. I drove home to our house in the suburbs, where Linda was waiting with coffee and the sympathy of someone who'd watched me pour my professional life into building something that had just discarded me. "How are you feeling?" she asked as I sat at our kitchen table. "Honestly, curious." "Curious about what?" "How long it takes them to realize what they've lost." That evening, I opened my home office laptop and began reviewing the comprehensive documentation I'd been maintaining for years, not the sanitized version that lived in TechFlow's official repositories, but my personal archive of architectural decisions, design rationales, and implementation details that explained why every system worked the way it did. I also reviewed the consulting agreements I'd been quietly negotiating with 3 of TechFlow's largest competitors, companies that had been trying to hire me away for years, offering substantial premiums for my expertise in building stable, scalable enterprise software. The first call came on Wednesday, 3 days after my termination. Kyle Stevens, the young architect who was supposed to replace me. "Derek, I hope you don't mind me calling directly, but I'm having trouble understanding some of the authentication protocols in the client management system." "What kind of trouble?" "Well, the documentation mentions a custom encryption method, but I can't find the implementation details anywhere, and when I try to modify the logging flow, the entire system becomes unstable." I paused, considering my response. "Kyle, that system handles authentication for 50,000 users across 12 major clients. Any modifications require understanding the underlying cryptographic principles." "Right, but surely there's documentation somewhere." "Brandon said you'd left comprehensive notes." "I left exactly what's required by company policy. Everything else is architectural knowledge that comes from years of experience." "Could you Maybe consult on this specific issue? Just a few hours to walk me through the implementation? I'm afraid I'm no longer a TechFlow employee, Kyle. You'll need to contact Brandon about any consulting arrangements. The second call came on Friday. Carol, my former assistant, with panic in her voice. Derek, the Morrison Industries client portal has been down for 6 hours. Kyle and his team can't figure out what's wrong. The client is threatening to terminate their contract. What's the error? Something about database connection failures, but the database servers are running fine. Kyle says it's related to some custom optimization code you wrote. I sighed. Morrison Industries was TechFlow's largest client, responsible for 30% of our annual revenue. Their portal processed thousands of transactions daily using performance optimizations. I'd spent 2 years perfect. Carol, I can't provide technical support for systems I no longer have access to. Brandon will need to decide how to handle this. He's been trying to reach you all afternoon. I'm sure he has. By Monday morning, Brandon was calling me directly. I let it go to voicemail. Derek, look, I know our transition could have been handled better, but we have some urgent technical issues that require your expertise. Can we discuss a short-term consulting arrangement? I didn't call back immediately. Instead, I spent the day meeting with Richard Chen, CTO of Datamax Solutions, TechFlow's primary competitor. Richard had been courting me for 3 years, offering increasingly attractive packages to join his company. Derek, I'll be direct, Richard said over lunch at an expensive downtown restaurant. TechFlow's instability creates an opportunity for us. Several of their major clients have contacted us about potential migrations. Interesting. We're prepared to offer you a senior architect position at $180,000 base salary. That's 25% more than you were making at TechFlow, plus equity and a signing bonus. You'd lead our enterprise platform division. I considered the offer carefully. Richard, I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm not looking to jump directly into another full-time role. What are you thinking? Independent consulting, multiple clients, premium rates, the freedom to choose projects that interest me. Richard smiled. I understand. In that case, Datamax would like to be your first consulting client. We're launching a major platform upgrade and could use someone with your expertise in stable architecture design. What's the rate? $300 per hour, minimum 20 hours per week, 6-month initial contract. I accepted on the spot. Tuesday brought the third call from Brandon, this time with barely controlled desperation. Derek, we need to talk. 3 of our major clients are experiencing system issues, and Kyle's team can't resolve them. Morrison Industries is demanding explanations we can't provide. I'm sorry to hear that, Brandon. Look, I made a mistake. Maybe the transition was too aggressive. Can we bring you back as a consultant while Kyle's team gets up to speed? What are you offering? Your old salary plus 20%. Part-time basis just until we stabilize operations. Brandon, my consulting rate is $350 per hour. Minimum engagement of 40 hours, payment in advance. Silence. Then, that's more than we were paying you annually. Market rates for independent consulting to resolve critical technical crises. Take it or leave it. I need to discuss this with the board. Of course. Let me know when you decide. Wednesday brought news that made my decision easy. Carol called with an update that confirmed what I'd expected. Derek, Morrison Industries terminated their contract this morning. Kyle tried to implement a quick fix that corrupted their entire transaction database. They lost 6 hours of customer data. How much revenue? Morrison was worth $2.8 million annually. Plus, 2 other clients are demanding emergency meetings about system reliability. And Kyle? Brandon fired him yesterday. The entire modernization project is on hold. That afternoon, I received a formal offer from TechFlow's board of directors. Emergency consulting contract, $400 per hour, 60-hour minimum engagement, to stabilize critical operations and facilitate knowledge transfer, I declined. Instead, I accepted 3 consulting contracts that would keep me busy for the next 18 months. Datamax Solutions wanted me to design their new enterprise platform. Morrison Industries had contacted me directly about building a custom solution to replace what they'd lost at TechFlow, and 2 other former TechFlow clients were interested in migrations to more stable platforms. Combined revenue from these contracts, $450,000 over the next year, more than I'd ever made as a full-time employee, with the flexibility to choose my own schedule and work on projects that actually challenged me. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new home office, a converted garage that Linda had helped me design as a proper workspace, reviewing the quarterly report from Datamax Solutions. Our new platform had captured 40% of TechFlow's former client base, generating $12 million in revenue and establishing Datamax as the industry leader in stable enterprise software. TechFlow, meanwhile, had been acquired by a larger firm at a 60% discount to their pre-Brandon valuation. The acquiring company had immediately hired a team of experienced architects to rebuild the systems that Kyle's team had damaged beyond repair. Brandon Mitchell had moved on to another startup, where he was presumably disrupting someone else's operations with his modern management theories. My phone rang with a call from Richard Chen at Datamax. "Derek, the board approved your proposal for the advanced security module. We're looking at another $200,000 contract to implement your authentication framework across our entire platform." "Excellent. When do we start?" "Next month. There's one more thing. Morrison Industries is recommending us to 3 of their partner companies, all enterprise-level implementations that would require your architectural expertise." I smiled, looking out at the garden where Linda was planting vegetables we'd never had time to grow when I was working 60-hour weeks at TechFlow. "Send me the requirements docs. I'll have proposals ready by Friday." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began reviewing the design specifications for what would become the next generation of enterprise software architecture. Clean, elegant, stable systems built by someone who understood that technology should serve businesses, not disrupt them for the sake of disruption. That evening, Linda and I sat on our deck with wine and the satisfaction of watching a plan come together better than I'd ever imagined. "Any regrets?" she asked. "About leaving TechFlow?" "None. Brandon did me the biggest favor of my career." "How so?" "He forced me to discover what my experience was actually worth in the open market. Turns out 15 years of institutional knowledge commands premium rates when you're not constrained by corporate salary structures." Later that night, I received an email from Carol, who'd also left TechFlow after the Morrison Industries debacle. She'd found a position at a stable company that valued experience over trends. "Derek," she wrote, "thought you'd want to know. TechFlow's new owners are advertising for a senior software architect position. Requirements include 15 years experience with complex enterprise systems and proven track record of stable architecture design." The irony was too perfect not to share. I forwarded the job posting to my professional network with a simple note: "Interesting opportunity for someone who enjoys rebuilding systems that used to work perfectly. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply building something better while your former company struggles to recreate what they carelessly discarded." Brandon had been right about one thing. Experience can become a liability, but only for the companies foolish enough to discard it in favor of trends that will be forgotten before the next quarterly report. I'd learned that my institutional knowledge wasn't just valuable, it was irreplaceable, and in the consulting market, irreplaceable expertise commands whatever price you're confident enough to ask for. Tomorrow would bring new client calls, new architecture challenges, and new opportunities to build systems designed to last. But tonight I was content knowing that every line of code I wrote was appreciated, every design decision was respected, and every year of experience was compensated at rates that reflected its true market value. The future Brandon had promised to build without me was struggling to function. The past he'd dismissed as obsolete was generating more revenue and professional satisfaction than I'd ever thought possible. Sometimes getting fired is the best thing that can happen to your career, especially when you're prepared to prove exactly what your former company lost when they let you go. If this story moved you, don't forget to follow, turn on notifications, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means the world to me.